Hello and warmest of welcome to everyone who is watching. My name is Antonina, and I would like to present to you WooCast, which is a conversation with the lovely Emma Gilding about what it takes to create a business and heal the world at the same time. So a little bit of a forward. This series was created as a way of opening conversation with all the amazing, wonderful, talented women who are out there who are creating and building their business and tending to their families and healing themselves and healing the world at the same time, because when you heal yourself, you heal the world. And I wanted to recognize and acknowledge all of these amazing people while meeting them where they're at today. And so out of this, the idea of Woo Conversations was born. And so joining me today is the lovely Emma Brooke Gilding, who is a coach, a therapist, a yoga teacher, and correct me if I'm wrong, a Course in Miracles teacher as well. Hello, Emma.
Hi, thank you for that. That was it. Yeah, I'm a student and teacher of Course in Miracles. It's been with me for a while, but I'm starting to speak out more about it now. So yeah.
Brilliant. Yes, thank you so much for joining me. And I guess although hopefully I've done a good job of introducing you, I would love to know how you got to where you are today. So how what's been your journey so far?
Do you know what? It's been something that has kind of been with me for years, and it's been quite an evolving journey, so quite slow, and it's happened without me really realizing it too much. I guess when I was about 15, I went to a Catholic school. It was still run by a nun at the time, so I wasn't Catholic, but I was brought up very much in that religion. And by the time I got to about 15, I was feeling a little bit restricted in that belief system, and I was really still interested in spirituality and God, and I had a very strong belief. So I started looking outside at all different other types of religions, and eventually realized, after looking at the Eastern traditions and Wicca and like all sorts of other things, actually spirituality was quite a wide and broad topic. You didn't have to fit into one particular box of a religion to call yourself spiritual. So that was a real awakening for me. And then I went to my first yoga class when I was 19 in university. And that was just a very different experience. So I started going to yoga regularly and eventually got more and more into the spiritual aspect of that, because it's a moving meditation, and just learning when you're not in a great place. At that point, I'd come out of a short but quite damaging abusive relationship. So my self-esteem was low, my self-confidence was low, and just to be in that environment where there was no sense of competition, where nobody was looking at me and I could just go through this moving meditation was incredible, and very, very healing. So that was when I started yoga, which was 12, I'm 31 now. So yeah, 12 years ago.
Oh, wow. And remind me, what kind of yoga do you practice?
Now I practice Ashtanga, so that's been a recent thing. So I trained in Raja and Hatha yoga, which is probably what you do when you go to a normal yoga class.
Yes.
And I did my teacher training in 2009 in London, but Ashtanga has always intrigued me, but it's quite intense and it's very dedicated. So I think I had to be in the right space. So I started Ashtanga yoga in March this year, because it's traditionally a 6-day-a-week practice for like an hour and a half.
Wow.
So
dedication, yes, is the word that springs to mind.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to make sure that I had that space to practice and commit to it, and it felt right this year. So I've been doing that. But after the yoga, I ended up with an eating disorder in my early 20s, which again culminated from previous stuff that I'd not dealt with.
Unhealed stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I ended up in therapy thanks to very much my parents, a loving family. I was very, very lucky, because here in the UK, the NHS is brilliant in many cases, and it's getting a lot better with talking therapies, but sometimes there's quite a long wait list in America. I know you can, I mean, everyone sees a therapist in America, but it's all private health.
Bring it here and make it the norm.
I know, but again, I guess you pay for it in America, whereas at least here it's free. So, but I was very, very fortunate that I got to see an amazing therapist and work with a therapist quite intensely, and that not only healed a lot of my previous issues, it healed my eating disorder, it also taught me how amazing the work is of therapists and coaches and counselors and what they do. So I'd always been interested in psychology. I did HR at university because I needed to do a business degree according to my family. So psychology in business, which is what HR is, was kind of a bit of a compromise on my part. But in the end, I decided that I really wanted to retrain. So I was in a job and I just thought, I don't want to retrain for another 3 years, but I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And I did my yoga teacher training, I did massage courses, I did Reiki, all the shorter courses.
Exploration,
Yeah. And then I was like, do you know what? No, I still want to do this. So I ended up signing up for a 3-year course. It took me 4 years in the end because I took a year out, but it was the best decision I ever made. So I qualified with my advanced diploma about a year ago.
Okay, brilliant.
And, that's me.
And so I kind of get your spiritual journey, but what has been the defining moment where you said, I want to work for myself and I want to make this as a business and being in the business of working for myself?
Again, that I attribute that probably to after I got back from India, because up until that point, even though I had, websites which were terrible.
No, I followed you for a while. They were not. I did.
They were, I made them myself and the copy was really dodgy. But even though I had all that, at the end of the day, it was a bit of a pipe dream for me. I thought, I can do this in my spare time. Maybe one day I can have like a part-time job and do this part-time. But I was still living in Liverpool at the time. We were in the middle of a recession. Nobody had any jobs. And the idea of people spending money on themselves for a coach or a counselor or Reiki, which I was doing at the time, was just like, God, this is going to be an uphill struggle for me. So even when I was in London, I got a job and I really enjoyed it. And I kind of thought, I really love my job and it's really secure and I have this great team. And do I really want to give that up? Is it worth the risk? And I was still studying at the time. So I thought, well, I'm still studying, even though, yes, I've got my diploma now and technically I can counsel people. I could keep this part-time. And then I went to India, which was a big dream of mine since I did my teacher training in 2009. I went to India at the end of 2013 and I went to an Ayurvedic retreat. Oh, yes,
of course. We talked about
yeah, and I went. It's in the middle of the jungle in Kerala, and it was incredible.
I found that incredible and incredibly healing.
Yeah, it was wonderful. But I was expecting there to be other people there, as you do on these sort of things. That there was supposed to be other people around, like that I would meet, that I would talk to and interact with. Well, for some reason, I picked pretty much the only weeks in the entire year where I was the only person there. So I got there and there were like 2 people that had been there a month and they left within 2 days. And then I was by myself and I was like, oh my God. So amazing. I had 2 yoga classes a day. I had Ayurvedic
from all the stuff.
But the rest of the time I was literally just sat there by myself in quiet contemplation, which I think was exactly what I needed.
Probably in hindsight, that was exactly why you just didn't sign up for it.
Yeah, I was just like, where are the people? Like, I'm going crazy here. But I ended up cutting my trip short a little bit because I was like, I can't. I'm ready now. I've done my meditation, and in that time, I just sort of thought, you know what, I am supposed to be doing this more. And I went back. I talked to my director. I was like, right, I'm going to quit. I'm going to move back up north. I'm going to move out of London. And she was like, Emma, what are you doing? What's your plan? And I was like, I don't have a plan. I'm just going to move. And she was like, no, you're not. I was like, really? She was like, no, I mean, you don't have a plan. You're not moving anywhere. And I was like, okay. So we ended up in a compromise and she was really great and she allowed me to drop down to 4 days a week. So that was, the end of 2013. So I did a year and a half in the end, doing 4 days a week, which allowed me to build up my business. And then a year later, I went and talked to her and I was like, now I'm ready. And I gave her 6 months notice. But yeah, I think it was probably India and just
probably sounds like it.
Trying to mesh the two parts of you, the part that actually, I love my job. I was in operations and it was really logistical and process orientated. And I have that side of me, that very organized side, and I loved it. But then I had this other side that just kept niggling away. And I was like, do you know what? There's going to come a tipping point, and I'm not going to force it. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. And that's kind of when it happened. So it took from decision to actually going. It was about, probably like a year and a half. But that was probably the defining moment.
Sure. Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds that this is when the spiritual side just got bigger and outgrew the kind of the other processes type, right? Who is calling in? Sorry, guys, we're not accepting any more people. This is an interview. You're more than welcome to ask questions in the chat box, please. Thank you. And how can I say, if you were to make your whole work, so everything that you do, because you do quite a few things, into a movement, what would that be?
My real movement, and it's what I've realized is it still fits into A Course in Miracles. So A Course in Miracles is be the light. So I am the light, and my only purpose is to be the light and expand the light outwards. But to narrow that down a little bit for me, it's to really encourage people to be aware that they have to fill up their own cup first. So many, and particularly women, that's why I work mainly with women. We're people pleasers, we love to look after everybody else and not be selfish. Selfish is such a taboo word. And it's like, oh God, you're so selfish. That's such a bad thing to be. And actually, it's not at all, because how are we supposed to continue to give and continue to be our best and achieve our potential so that we can share all that we have to give if we're exhausted and burnt out because we're constantly doing things for other people? So it's about filling up your own cup first so that then you can help.
I like to say that if you don't look after yourself, let's face it, no one else will. So it's a non-negotiable in a way.
Yeah, you have to mirror that. If you want people to look after you have to show that you're worthy of being looked after by looking after
redefining
yourself.
Selflessness in a way would be the movement, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And saying that, so we're talking spirituality today. Like, what does spirituality mean to you? What is your own definition of spirituality? Because it's such a broad term.
It really is. And I think for me, it's a step away from organized religion. As I said, I kind of grew up in a Catholic school, which I found really restrictive. And for some people, it's amazing. And I saw the support that the church gave to many, many people. And I totally respect that. But for me, I always struggled because there were parts of, as I said, in my late teens, I started looking into all sorts of different religions, and there was always something that didn't quite fit with me. And I found that really difficult because I desperately wanted to find a religion that I could say, this is my religion, and this is what I believe, and this is the book that I follow, or whatever, and kind of box myself off. I guess that's the process and organized side of me that wants to do that. And eventually I realized that it didn't have to be like that actually all religions have a common purpose, and that is to love one another and to love yourself and to be better people in the world. And it's just about being, for me, spirituality is about being connected to every other living being, to know that there is something bigger than ourselves that connects us all, and that our sole purpose is to be love and to share. Yeah,
I totally
love.
agree. That's kind of how I view spirituality for myself. And then I think when you come into that understanding, you then return to God almost, and then it doesn't become. It stops being this concept of a guy on a cloud, and it becomes like, this is what it is. Okay, so I'm very happy to say that I believe in God.
Yeah, because it's not about some like magical being in the sky. It's about finding our own truth and our own spirituality, and finding God in ourselves and finding God in other people. And I tend to sometimes avoid that term God, and I use universe or energy or whatever, higher consciousness, whatever it might be. It's about finding that commonality and that humanness.
I love that. So saying that, because you mentioned looking for a book, how did you come across A Course in Miracle books? Because I'm sure there's a story associated with that.
Yeah, do you know what? It's weird. A lot of people have that kind of strange story. I don't have a Gabrielle Bernstein story. It didn't jump out at me. It didn't pull me to the counter to pay for it. But I actually don't remember how I got hold of the book that I have. I know I bought it off Amazon, and I actually went back through, because Amazon tracks all your orders for like your entire life. So I went back recently and I checked when I first bought this book, and I first bought it in 2007.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so I bought it a long time ago, and I have no idea how I came across it. I've been on the spiritual path, so I'm sure I started hearing about it. And I read through it and I did the exercises, and it just, it was too much for me at the time. I went through it. But for those of you who are maybe not aware of A Course in Miracles, it's a big book. It looks like a Bible, like it's huge, hardback, dark blue, gold writing on the front. And it's written in very Christic language, very Christian language. It talks about God, the Holy Spirit. And it's written in a very confusing way. So when you read it, you're like, what the hell is going on? Is this even English? But the reason that I've learned now is that you're not really supposed to understand it straight away, because you're trying to use your logical mind. And it was a channeled book. So it was written by somebody who didn't believe in God at all. Actually, she was really pissed off that she
channeling this,
being made to write. Yeah, channeling this book that she was like, I don't believe in any of this. And it's a workbook with 365 lessons. So you do a lesson a day. You can read the workbook. There's a manual for teachers at the back. And the more you come to read it, the more you realize that it's just about practicing love. It's just about returning to love, that every time there's fear, every time there's anger, every time there's any sort of bad feeling in you, that you can shift that in yourself by looking at yourself and how you perceive the world. I put the book down in sort of, I guess it would be 2008, and it sat on my bookshelf in my parents' house in Wales up until this year again, and or the back end of last year. Yeah, the back end of last year, I think I was working with a business coach, and she said to me, do you know who Gabrielle Bernstein is? And I was like, no, I've never heard of her. She said, look her up, because she was looking at it from a marketing perspective. She was like, this is a spiritual coach who really markets herself very well. She used to work in PR. I'm not saying that you want to copy her, but have a look at how she does things. And I looked at her and I was like, really not bothered about marketing, but I was like, oh my God, I love her teaching. And I realized it was A Course in Miracles. So I found the book, I picked it back up again, and I just felt like
I knew it's homecoming, because I could imagine it's been waiting for you all this time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just waiting for me to get into the right space. So I encourage anybody who has that interest or whatever, pick it up. If it's not for you, then come back to it. I'm sure it'll find you, or something else will. Also, Marianne Williamson's A Return to Love is kind of her take on A Course in Miracles, which is much, much, much easier to read. So if you want an introduction into the principles, read that, or read Spirit Junkie by Gabrielle Bernstein. It's another great introduction.
I use that as my lesson, as my Course in Miracles light, actually. So I thought I'll do that first. I'm somewhere like lesson 60, and then if I feel I'm ready, that's what I'm picking up next. So saying that, how does your own spiritual practice come into your business model? Like, how do you blend the two?
At the moment, I guess I'm still trying to find my way. Yoga is a real standpoint for me. So now I have this 6-day-a-week practice, which has kind of been messed up recently, partly by my puppy, because I used to get up at 6:30 and come down and do my yoga and start my day. And now I have to come down and let her out, then come back and feed her, then let her out again, and then wait for her to like settle down. But yoga has been a huge standpoint of mine. So I really try and just stick with my yoga practice and make sure that I practice, because it gives me that time to just chill out, and that time for me very much. So that's a mainstay. And then my meditation practice, which I also bring into my business. So at the moment, you're doing
I fell asleep again yesterday. So guess what? I'm starting day one today again.
Oh,
I thought,
no.
you know what? This is for me. Just for those who are not aware, me and Emma are doing this 40-day sadhana meditation practice where you're supposed to do a particular chant and a particular meditation, a particular mantra for 40 days. And I just broke my second time, but I realized this is my exercise in resilience, and this is my own lesson. So I am following along, and I realized where I've been going wrong is I need to be doing it first thing in the morning, not at night, because what happens, I get tired and I fall asleep.
Yeah, maybe that's true actually. But yeah, so that, the meditation practice from learning what I have over the years about meditation and my own meditation practice, I bring that in with my clients a lot now. So there's a lot of meditation for my clients, and they get meditation homework, they get yoga homework. Yeah, but there's also that side of things have become a lot easier for me. I used to really struggle to make decisions, like really, really struggle to make decisions, because I had this logic side of my brain that wanted to weigh up everything and do pluses and minuses, and I just used to get so confused with it all. And I eventually realized that when you tune in a bit more, when you get more connected, when you get more in flow and just let go of the outcome, that's probably been my biggest lesson since I started doing this full time, is that you just come to decisions. Like when I the second time when I quit my job after my 4 days a week, I didn't think about that long and hard and weigh it up. I literally woke up one morning and went, okay, I'm going to quit my job today. And that was it. And it just felt so right. And every decision that I've made since then, I haven't had to stress about. I have decided that next year I'm going to move to Italy and move back to Italy. And that, again, it was just a decision that I didn't really weigh up or get stressed about. It was like, oh, yeah, I'll move back to Italy. It feels right. And I have to trust that everything will happen. And it is happening. The synchronicities fall into place. And I think the universal entrepreneur sort of model, where you work with the universe and what it's intending for you, is so much easier than trying to fight and figure out. We've all done, I'm sure you're the same, you've done so many different courses and how to do this and how to do that, and you need to learn how to use Facebook ads, for example. The universe isn't going to guide you on Power Editor, but but there are other sides of things like marketing, and you just get so bogged down with, what structure should my sales page take? And actually, in the end, when I worked with my business coach, I scrapped all my copy and I rewrote it completely from scratch. And I wrote it in about,
from yourself,
I wrote my work with me page, in like 10 minutes. Because my coach was like, just write what you're trying to do. And I was like, oh, but what about the structure? Structure? And he was like, just write it. And I sent it to her and she was like, oh my God,
that's been my experience as well. I've been blocked up in writing for ages and ages and ages and ages, and like you said, going on all the direction, buying all the courses, where I suddenly got it, and it's so obvious. Just write as if you're, from your heart, as if you're talking to somebody who is close to you, who you love, who you want to understand some simple truth, and just share your experience. Like that's that. There's no special secret. There's no special formula. And
exactly. It's all about being authentic and just showing. The more you show you,
and
here it is.
And it's completely okay if there are some people who are going to disagree with you. It's not going to be the end of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're you, and there isn't going to be. You're not going to be a catch-all for everybody.
And so, what it brings me to is, when we start the business. Actually, this is very relevant. It's very easy to put on a role. So I don't know if that's been your experience. For me, starting from coaching, I have to be a coach. What it's like to be a coach. And was that your experience? And if it was, when did you say, like, enough is enough? You know what? I'm just going to lay all of me on the table, on the proverbial table, please. and I'm just going to declare, this is who I am. This is the kind of work that I do. This is how I do the work. And that's that.
Yeah, to be honest, I had a really good experience with that because I was working as an operations manager, which was, you know, about as far removed from a counselor as you can get. So I was leading, I felt like I was leading a double life, and it was so hard because, yes, there were a couple of people in work, you know, people were aware that I was perhaps doing some training. And then when I dropped down to 4 days a week, I explained to everybody that I dropped down to 4 days a week because I was finishing my training and I was doing a counseling placement at a bereavement service. But nobody understood the whole online thing really. And to then be in this dual role where I was going to work and really loving my job. And I think that's what made it worse. I think maybe if I hated my job, it would be easier because I would be like, oh, it's 100%. I can talk about this and this is what I'm doing. But actually, I really loved my job. So I felt so torn because then I'd talk about being a counselor and being a coach and, you know, on my blog. And I was like, but I'm not yet. And I didn't feel like, even though I was working, you know, I was working at the Royal London Hospital as a counsellor. I was a counsellor for all intents and purposes. I was seeing clients, but I still felt like you know, when people say, oh, what do you do? I still said, oh, I'm an operations manager. So it wasn't until I finally made the decision that, yes, I'm leaving, and I gave my notice, that I could then start to talk about what I was doing in work. And I had to wait another 3 months before I started telling people in work, because 6 months was quite a long time. And when I started to tell people, oh, this is what I'm doing, and I'm seeing clients, and I've been seeing clients on Mondays, it felt so much better. And I think that's when I kind of became more authentic and just kind of went, actually, I do work part-time. I'm leaving, but I work part-time because actually this process takes time, and I was studying and I actually love my job, and that's fine. And then I think working with my business coach as well this time last year was really helpful because she really pushed me to be very authentic in what I was doing and get really clear on my message. But for me, it was when I finally quit my job and I could say, this is 100% what I'm doing. It became a lot easier.
So it sounds like you had to get truthful with yourself than everybody else around you in order to make it happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. The more you start saying it, the more authentic it feels. But when you're hiding it away, it just feels really icky.
Suddenly it's a thing that you're suppressing. It's a big bad secret. Like nobody must know.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing this work, but nobody must know.
Yeah, and it was like trying to keep my name separate, and I was keeping Emma Gilding for work, and I was using Emma Brooke for my coaching because I was like, oh my God, what if a client Googles like Emma Gilding and they get this random counsellor person coming up, and what if a potential client Googles Emma Gilding and they get an operations manager coming up? Like, how confusing is that for them? And I think it was confusing for me,
for you,
not that it would have been confusing for them.
True. So I would say, what are your two biggest lessons on both the entrepreneurial path and the spiritual path that you're willing to share with us today?
Do you know what? I'm going to just have a little look at my notes here because I know I did them. But I'm interested in what I actually...
Yeah, I do that all the time. I have no idea what I write.
Yeah, I was like, what did I write for this? So I think for me personally, it's about being authentic and being vulnerable. My biggest lesson was actually when I let people in, when I was really truthful about my woo-woo side and my spiritual side. I got a completely different response to the one I expected. I don't think I gave enough people credit. I don't think I gave enough people the time to think that maybe they were quite spiritual as well. We're going through this huge revolution, an evolution in our consciousness right now, and way more people than you think are interested in this stuff. In the corporate world in particular, everybody hides it. But when you start talking about it, it's amazing how many people are interested in it. So I say, be more vulnerable, get all your, shit out on the table. Like, then you have nothing to be afraid of. When I started talking about the fact that I had another job, all of a sudden I wasn't afraid of it anymore, and I could embrace it, and it gave me a really different energy. So that's my personal one, I guess. And my business one is that the know, like, trust theory that you hear about all the time is real. please don't buy into all this BS that we are all seeing and all starting to finally talk up about at the moment of, oh, in 2 months I made £1 million by doing this strategy. It's not about quick fixes. I know from buying my own packages, I know from investing in my own coaches and investing in my own counselors, that I have stalked them online for quite a while before I bought
that's
from
so
them.
true.
And I have, it's, you get to know people that know, like, trust.
Much
like
deeper, right? That's what I find, that when I connect with somebody
absolutely
just off the bat, I'm not able to go and deliver what I really want to deliver than, let's say, with the client that I just had before this interview, where we have that connection established. I was,
Yeah, absolutely. That take that time, don't panic. Like, most of my clients have been in my group a couple of months before they decide to become clients of mine, or they've had an Akashic Records reading, a one-off reading, and then 2 months later they've come back to me and gone, right, now I want to do your big program. And they already know you, and you already know them. And
so much more beautiful.
It's the work is so much better.
So speaking of, I completely forgot. Tell us how, because this is a new addition to your Woo resume, if you will, right? The Akashic Records reading. Talk me through this. I'm fascinated.
Yes. Yeah, Akashic Records are new to me as well. Like, I literally discovered them in the summer, and I just started, I don't know where I started seeing them, but they started on Facebook, because I live my life on Facebook pretty much now. So I started seeing these Akashic Records, and I was like, what are these records? Now, I've always been very intuitive in my meditations. I've tapped into things. I've got intuitive messages, and working with Reiki as well, you get very familiar with the energy. But I started hearing all about these Akashic Records, and then I started getting messages in my meditations. I'm sorry for all you guys who are not quite as woo-woo as we are, but I started getting all these messages that, I needed to look them up, and I needed to start reading the Akashic Records, and I started getting messages through the Akashic Records, and I was like, oh my God, like, I have no idea what this is. So I bought a book, I read a book, and I started reading everything I could online, and I was just guided, like, literally in my meditations, I would be guided into the records. I would be guided what to do. And I started off, I got in touch with a couple of people and said, could I read your records? Because I'm being told that I need to start reading people's records, and I really have no idea what I'm doing. So I did that with a few friends of friends. So I didn't know them, which was helpful, because I didn't want it to be like, I wanted to know what was me and what wasn't.
Yourself almost.
Which, I know you shouldn't test the universe, but I felt I needed to. And the response I got was just incredible. Basically, for those of you who don't know, the Akashic Records are like a huge database of every single soul in existence, and with their soul book. So every soul has their own book, which is a record of every single interaction, thought, feeling, path, everything that's ever happened in all of their past lives, in all the bits in between, and also with potential outcomes for various different futures, depending on what happens. And you can go into the records and you can get a lot more guidance on the big questions, the whys, like, why am I in this relationship? Why can I not seem to shift this energy? Why do I keep coming back to this person or this job? Or, why do I seem to have this unresolved energy with my mom or whatever it might be? And you can get a higher level perspective from, than you would do in your normal meditation, where you're looking at it from this soul's kind of lifetime. And you can also really change beliefs. So you can find where a belief started, where a pattern started, and just go in with a reader, and he or she can actually delete that belief that's there, that really deep-seated belief, and you can rewrite it. So I can go in, I can see where a belief is being held, I can see if it was in a past life or whatever, and I can delete it. I in my head, I can see the book, and I'm like actually rubbing it out.
What I'm doing now, sorry, just to explain, as you're talking, I went to your website, and I'm going to bring up the link to the service, because I think you're offering it at a crazy price now, and it is the most profound thing that I have done. and I am a wood junkie. I've tried a lot of different modalities and things. So I think this information needs to be available to a wider audience, and the fact that Emma is offering it at the price that she is nuts. So
thank you. Yeah, I wanted to make it really, really achievable because it's new for me as well. And I wasn't sure when I started it, and then I just thought, you know what, like, I don't need to put it up. I really enjoy doing it. So, but yeah, just this fact that you can just go in and delete these beliefs that have been plaguing you for lifetimes, and just replace them with a better belief. It really is that simple, and it works really well with coaching as well.
Sometimes you can't shift that stuff. I find that as well. I mean, to the point where when I started working with Akashic Readers, I came to a realization that there's stuff that you cannot just shift with just one healing modality. It needs to be done on a soul level. So I think I subconsciously requested something like that before I got my answer with Akashic Records. Oh, okay, yes, that's exactly what I need.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because sometimes there's the pattern, you clear the belief, but then you recreate it.
The energy recreates,
and it's like, okay, so what do you need to learn? Yeah, what do you need to learn that you haven't learned yet? And the Akashic readings can give you that lesson, and then that's when working with a coach or a counselor or doing some healing or whatever it might be can really help to just work out whatever
on
you
a
need to
physical
work
level
out.
Through the I think because I think the two really complement each other. Whereas, okay, yes, you can delete a belief on a soul level, but as humans, as physical beings, it's helpful if we do some work on it as well, if we kind of process it as well, right?
Yeah, to be aware of it. And I've found that as well when the clients I'm working with at the moment, I've done Akashic Records reading with her before, and I'm in my 8-week program. I did another Akashic Records reading with her because I wanted to clear a little bit of other stuff that was there, and it was easier to do it in the records. So they do work really well together.
Yes. Okay. So I've popped the link in there. Check it out, people, and then to kind of step away from the woo a little bit and go into the practicalities, because I know, well, from having followed and actually having worked with you before, you have been on the entrepreneur online scene for a while. So I'm sure there are some processes and some things some wisdom of yours that you can share with those people who are starts at the beginning of their entrepreneurial and online journey. That's something that you learned along the way that they can find really useful.
Yeah, so I do love my processes. I'm a big process person. So I like automating everything that I can. I love connecting with people, and I love getting in touch with people. But if there's a process that makes it easier, I'm all over it. So my web designer introduced me to Asana.com. If you haven't got it, please use it. It's amazing. And I use it. Yeah, so I use it for daily tasks. So it's a to-do list, basically. You can use it as a project management system. You can pay and get teams involved and things like that. But I have a project which is like my daily tasks, and you can set tasks to recur weekly or to recur daily or whatever. So things like social media images and stuff like that, I have recurring. So they come up on a day and I know, right, this is what I'm doing today. And I use it in my personal life as well. So I have like personal tasks, personal development. So I keep a list of what books I want to read and that sort of thing. But I also use it as a CRM tool. So I keep sort of names of clients that I've worked with and where we're up to in our process as well. Just for my own reference, I think you can attach documents to it.
I haven't heard of Asana. I think something like that. But anyone who's worked with it, they're quite complimentary with it, if you will.
Yeah, and it's free. You can pay if you want to have like a team or whatever. If you have a team, I don't, so I just use the free version, and I really love it. Also, I use Google Drive permanently for everything. I also use Google Forms. So because I have different opt-ins, so I have a couple of different opt-ins. I have a meditation, I have a 5-day people-pleasing cleanse. And depending on where you go, I use MailChimp as my email host. So I wanted to be able to, for somebody to sign up for the meditation and get an email with the meditation. And I wanted somebody to sign up for the cleanse and get the 5 videos for the cleanse. And I got myself quite confused. But eventually I figured out that I could use Google Forms and create like really nice forms with backgrounds and personalize it a lot, and then have that go into a spreadsheet in Google Drive, which then fed through to MailChimp using Zapier, and I could put it into a separate group in MailChimp. If I'm going over your head here, feel free to send me a message for everybody else. But that was I loved that when I figured that out. And then in terms of social media and stuff like that, I use CoSchedule.
I was going to ask you about that, because this is...
so it's $10 a month. It's really inexpensive, but basically if you have a WordPress site, if you open up your dashboard, you can open up this calendar, and it's a month view, a week view, whatever it might be, and you can schedule everything you want. So you can schedule your WordPress posts, you can schedule tasks, you can add content, you can schedule Google Plus posts in no, you can't do Instagram
yet.
Google Plus posts, Facebook groups, your Facebook page. I think you can do LinkedIn, but I don't use LinkedIn. So and it's really easy. So you can create these posts, and you can then just like drag and drop.
So I've placed everything that you mentioned. I've sort of copied and pasted over here.
Yeah. And the last one I use is Schedule Once, which is to schedule my appointments. So I get really confused with time differences. I really struggle with it. I don't know what it is. So when you click anywhere on my website to schedule or book with me, it takes you through to Schedule Once, and you literally, you tell it what time zone you're in, and it comes up with my availability. It links to my personal Google Calendar. So I've got times that I am available for working, and then it cross-references with anything that I'm busy with in my personal Google Calendar, and it will only
brilliant. That's times. Really good.
Dead easy. Yeah, it works brilliantly. And then I just have a link that then feeds back to a payment page on my website. So that side of things
sounds great. Thank you. You gave us some really juicy. Perfect.
Yeah, that one's, I think that's like $19 a month. It's not ridiculously expensive.
It's the kind of prices that are worth paying to free up your time.
Yeah, like I'd literally do 10 emails back and forth trying to find an available time with time differences and stuff. It's like, who needs to do that?
This is what eventually we'll come across, all the time differences and organizing and all, and the time differences, they're super confusing. I don't know what it is about that. Okay, well, on a bigger scale, before we go, where do you think you're heading with all of this? Like, what's your biggest, boldest dream?
Do you know what? A lot of people talk about being, especially at the moment, like a 6-figure coach, or, I want to have this, I want to have that. I really don't have those financial goals. I want to be comfortable, and I want to be able to live a comfortable life. But my main goal is to be able to touch as many people as possible and help them on their journey. And I really think my big goal is, and it's A Course in Miracles principle, is just to be love, to be the light, and to shine that light and to spread the light as much as possible. I'm really embracing the idea of not having massive long-term goals. Like I'm picking up, I'm going to move to Italy next year. I don't know how long for.
Until it feels good, right?
Yeah, I love having that freedom. I think
there's a lot of freedom of that, not being right, this is what's going to happen and this is how it's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think if you keep your big why in mind, like my big why is to be love and spread love. And if you're able to keep that in mind, then it opens so many more doors. I'm not saying I'm going to be a coach or a counselor forever. Right now it feels amazing. But maybe that'll change, and maybe there's a different way for me to spread my light. And my big why is literally just.
And when it happens, you'll know, and this is when you're going to take action on it, isn't it? I think that comes with a lot of grounding, but also with a lot of trust.
Yeah, and that's scary. It's really scary to suddenly start trusting and release the how. So to have an idea of this is where I want to go, and to not know how to get there and just trust that synchronicities will fall into place. Like when I decided to move to Italy, I was like, oh, maybe I should start looking at apartments. And I looked on Airbnb and I found one apartment that I liked in the town that I want to live at. And my friend was like, no, wait, because my friend has an apartment. I was like, okay, cool, awesome. And she's like, she directs me to the place. She sends me a link. It's the one apartment.
Oh, wow, there you go.
So these things, they all start filtering in. When you start trusting, the synchronicities will start happening. You just have to be open.
I agree.
To
so
them.
while you were talking again, I copied your website.
Thank you.
How we can connect with you on FB, aka our online home. And
yes, where we live
and reside. Now, I'm wondering if anyone has any questions before we wrap up. Do please step forward and ask away in a respectable manner. Thank you.
Yeah, I do actually. I have to say, I really like this platform. I've not been on Blab before. I'm a member of Bronwyn's group, and I know she uses Blab quite a lot. And I was like, what is this Blab thing going on? But it's nice. I like the fact that there's
conversation, isn't it? Because I've had, as you know, I was, I wanted to originally do this on YouTube or Google Hangouts, which has proven to be very tiresome and time consuming. I think the last interview was done on Friday. It had to be released on a Monday because of some edited work that needed to be done, and because I'm not a professional editor, I had to learn as I go. It literally took the whole weekend. I thought this has to be an easier way, and then kind of went back and forth. I thought, okay, let's do Zoom maybe, but then this just seemed like the most real format that's available right now. And personally, I prefer it to Periscope because there's that interaction. You're talking with somebody else.
Yeah, it's great. And everyone sort of hopped on Periscope, and I kind of love it, but there's so many platforms. I think you have to just pick where you're comfortable and get good on that, and then add to it as you see fit. But no, I think it sounds like nobody has any burning questions
whatsoever. So I think, perhaps it's time to wrap up here as we are, and to thank you for giving us your time and wisdom and your story.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you. I know, I'm loving your new group. I know you have to plug your new group as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Because co-join the group because it's really fun as well, and no, it's been really fun catching up.
Brilliant connecting and seeing. Because I think last time when we spoke, it was never face to face, if you will.
Yeah, it was over Skype, but without the video.
Face. Yes, thank you again, and thank you for everyone who has participated and watched.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming.
I'm going to stop the recording here. Thanks a lot.